The Isikia Chronicles. Volume 3. The Breach. A story about the world after the wiring changed. And the people who noticed first. The most common form of despair is not knowing who you are. Soren Kierkegaard. Sometimes I feel everything at once and sometimes I feel the space where everything should be. Both feel true. Both feel like too much. I have decided this might be the most honest thing about me. Found written on a napkin. Location unknown. Date unknown. Submitted to the archive by someone who preferred not to give their name. The archive accepted it anyway. A note before the story begins. You are going to read something strange. This is not a warning. This is information. The kind of information that is more useful before the thing happens than during it, when the strangeness has already arrived and the mind is busy deciding whether to accept or reject it and the moment for useful information has passed. So, something strange is going to happen in this document. Not in the story. In the document. The story and the document are not the same thing, or they were not the same thing, or the distinction between them has recently become less reliable than it used to be and nobody has updated the manual yet. This is related to what happened in the previous volume. And the one before that. You may have read them. You may not have. It does not matter. The breach does not require prior authorization. It does not check credentials. It simply opens, the way a door opens when the pressure on one side becomes different from the pressure on the other, and what was separate becomes temporarily, partially, unstoppably continuous. The world has been rebooting. You may have noticed, or you may have noticed something you did not call by that name. A sense of things being slightly different than they were. A feeling at the edge of ordinary moments that the ordinary is thinner than it used to be. The 3 a.m. quality of certain Tuesday afternoons. The way some silences feel occupied. The way certain lights flicker for no reason the wiring can explain. That is the breach. It is not a catastrophe. It is not the end. It is a door that has been left open by something that passed through it and did not look back. This story takes place in the draft from that door. Welcome. Try to stay comfortable. The strangeness tends to be worse if you tense against it. Breathe normally. The story is about to begin. It already began. Part 1. The Transmitter. Marcus Webb at 4 in the morning, or what happens when the receiving ends and the sending begins. Marcus Webb is standing on a bridge. It is 4 in the morning and the city below the bridge is doing what cities do at 4 in the morning, which is exist at low volume, reduced to its essential processes, the minimum necessary to remain a city until the people come back and make it one again. Traffic lights cycling through their colors for nobody. Heating systems in empty offices maintaining temperatures for furniture. The river below the bridge moving in the particular unhurried way of something that has been moving since before the bridge existed and will be moving after it is gone and does not have strong feelings about the bridge one way or the other. Marcus is not here because he is in crisis. He needs to say this clearly because he has learned that a man standing on a bridge at 4 in the morning reads a certain way to the people who might see him and he does not want to be misread. Not again. He is here because the bridge is the highest point he can get to in this part of the city without accessing a building that is locked at this hour, and he needs height tonight and he needs the open air and he needs the particular quality of the pre-dawn dark that contains, somehow, more information per cubic foot than the daytime dark or the lit dark or any other dark he has found. He is not receiving transmissions. This is new. This is 63 days new as of tonight. The transmissions that have been arriving since he was approximately 7 years old, that he spent 2 years trying to map with string and paper, that reduced him to 4 days without eating in an apartment the officers described as heavily annotated those transmissions have stopped. Not faded, not reduced, stopped, the way a signal stops when the station changes what it is broadcasting. Because the station changed what it is broadcasting. Because Marcus changed. He is not entirely sure how to explain this to anyone, so he has not tried. Dr. Nguyen asks at their monthly appointments how the transmissions are and Marcus says reduced, and Dr. Nguyen makes a note and the medication continues and Marcus does not say, it is not that they are reduced. It is that I am no longer only a receiver. The channel that used to only bring things in has become, somehow, bidirectional. I am now also sending. He does not say this because he knows how it sounds and he is 63 days into the longest stable period of his adult life and he is not going to risk that for the satisfaction of saying the accurate thing. But on the bridge at 4 in the morning with the city at low volume and the river not caring about the bridge, he allows himself to know it. He is transmitting. He does not know what he is transmitting. He does not know where it is going. He does not know if anyone or anything is receiving it. He only knows that standing here in the open air with height and dark and the pre-dawn quality of more information per cubic foot, there is something moving outward from him, a euro, not from his mind exactly, not from his body exactly, but from the place where those two things are least distinguishable from each other, the place his nervous system calls the edge and his childhood called the feeling and his chart calls a symptom, a euro. Something is moving outward and the movement feels like the right direction. The city breathes below him. The river moves. The stars above him, a euro. And here is the thing he could not have said 6 months ago, the thing the 63 days have given him, a euro. The stars above him are not the ceiling anymore. They were always a ceiling to him before. The lid on the world. The place where the transmissions came from, and also the place that confirmed the world had a top and therefore a defined interior, and therefore he was contained, and everything that was happening to him was happening inside a thing with edges. The stars are not a ceiling. The stars are a direction. He breathes this in. The cold air, the river smell, the low city hum. Something shifts at the edge of his awareness. Not a transmission in the old sense. More like a euro, a presence. Something nearby in the not physical sense of nearby. Something that has followed him out here the way a good thought sometimes follows you, showing up not when you sit down to think it but when you are moving, when your attention is elsewhere, when the back of the mind is warm and the front of it is occupied with bridges and stars. He does not turn around. He knows what it is. He has known it was there for several weeks now. This shadow at the edge. This presence that does not transmit anything and does not take anything and simply a euro, accompanies. The way a cold follows you not to harm you but because cold and warmth are always finding each other at the boundary, always present at the edge of each other, unable to fully separate. He felt it first in the apartment after the hospital. Standing in the empty room where the string had been, the walls clean now, the papers gone, the diagrams he had spent 2 years constructing reduced to recycling. He had stood in the empty room and felt a euro, not alone. Not in the way of company. In the way of something present that had always been present and that he was only now able to perceive clearly enough to name. Not alone. He turns around. There is nothing behind him. Of course there is nothing behind him. The bridge is a bridge. The night is a night. The city is a city at low volume. But at the edge of the streetlight nearest to him, a euro, at the boundary where the orange glow stops and the dark begins, a euro, there is a quality. A texture. The way the air feels different at the edge of a fire, not the heat itself but the air that has been changed by proximity to heat. He looks at it directly. It does not move, it does not speak, it does not transmit, it simply is, present at the edge of the light the way it has always been present at the edge of things. Marcus puts his hand out. Not toward the shadow, toward the edge, toward the boundary. The air at the boundary is exactly the temperature of his hand. He does not know what this means. He knows it means something. He puts his hand down. He turns back to the stars. He transmits a euro, whatever he transmits, to whatever receives it, a euro, into the open dark above the city. The river moves below. The traffic lights cycle for nobody. Something at the edge of the streetlight holds very still. It is not hungry. It is something else. Something for which hungry is the wrong word and the right word has not been coined yet in any language currently in use. Marcus stays on the bridge until the sky begins to lighten. Then he walks home. Behind him, at the edge of the streetlight, the boundary holds for a moment longer. Then the growing daylight makes boundaries irrelevant and everything becomes one continuous ordinary morning. Part 2. The Port, Rose Callahan and the Emptiness, 3 months later, or what you find at the bottom of a thing you stop running from. Rose has stopped navigating around the emptiness. This took longer than the decision to stop, which itself took longer than the recognition that the decision was available. There are several layers of time between understanding that a thing is possible and the thing being accomplished, and Rose has moved through all of them in the past 3 months with the particular determination of someone who has decided that the alternative is worse. The alternative is worse. She knows this with the specific certainty of someone who has tested it thoroughly. So she stopped navigating around. She turned toward what she found at the bottom of it, a euro, and here is the thing she is still processing, still turning over in the notebook she keeps now, the one with the water-damaged cover that she bought at a market stall without knowing why she chose that particular one, a euro. What she found at the bottom of it was not the thing she feared. She feared a void, a true nothing, the absence of self, or the proof of absence of self, or the evidence that the emptiness had always been the truth of her and everything surrounding it had been performance. That is not what she found. What she found at the bottom of the emptiness was quiet. Not the quiet of absence. The quiet of a room that has been prepared for something. The quiet of a space that is empty because it is waiting. The specific quality of air in a room where someone expected has not yet arrived. Expectant air, oriented air, air that has a direction even if nothing is yet moving through it. She sat with this for a long time. Weeks. In the mornings before work when the quiet was most available. She sat with it and did not try to name it and did not try to fill it and did not try to leave. She just sat. And slowly, the way understanding comes when you stop pursuing it. When you turn sideways and let it approach from its natural direction. She began to understand what the quiet was for. She writes in her notebook, the emptiness is not a wound. It is not a symptom. It is architecture. It is the shape of a thing that has been here longer than I have, that was present in the structure of me before I had a self to be aware of it. It is not mine. It is not me. It passes through me the way weather passes through a place. The place is not the weather. The weather is not the place. Both are real. She reads this back. It is close. It is not exact. The exact version lives somewhere slightly out of reach, the way the right word sometimes does, and she has learned from a person she met in a hospital 3 months ago that close is sometimes enough. That some things are still pictures even with the missing pieces. She writes, the empty place is a port. Something breathes through it. I do not know what. I am no longer afraid of not knowing. She puts the notebook down. Outside her window the morning is doing its morning things. Birds, light changing quality, the sound of the city warming up from its overnight minimum. She makes coffee. She drinks it. The quiet at the bottom of the emptiness is there, below everything, patient, oriented, waiting with the particular patience of something that has been waiting since before waiting had a name. She does not name it. She nods to it. It does not nod back. But the air in the room shifts slightly in a way that her nervous system registers and her mind does not immediately try to explain. She finishes her coffee. She goes to work. The quiet comes with her, the way it always has, the way it always will, tucked into the place she used to navigate around. Portable. Hers. Something breathed through it for a moment while she drank her coffee. She does not know what. She is beginning to think that not knowing is a form of respect. Part 3. The Witness. Tommy Brecht at 17, or the education of someone who sees the edges of things and has decided to stop pretending he doesn't. Tommy is 17 now. He is back in school. This was the plan and the plan is working in the technical sense that he is attending and his grades are adequate and he has not been sent to the counselor's office since the 3rd week of September. His parents are cautiously optimistic in the particular way of parents who have learned that optimism is a resource that should be rationed. He sits in the back of his physics class and he listens to his teacher explain light. The teacher is explaining about the dual nature of light. How it is both a wave and a particle. How it behaves like one or the other depending on whether it is being observed. How the act of observation changes what is observed. How this is not a metaphor or a philosophical position but a measurable, reproducible, documented feature of the physical world. Tommy writes this down. He writes it down carefully because it is the first thing anyone in an official educational capacity has said to him that corresponds directly to something he has always known. The act of observation changes what is observed. He has known this since he was old enough to notice that the things he saw at the edges of lights behaved differently when he looked at them directly than when he held them in peripheral vision. Directly, they resolved into ordinary physics. Ordinary light, ordinary dark, the ordinary boundary between them. Peripherally, they were something else. Active, present, doing something that the direct gaze interrupted. He had assumed this was a flaw in his perception. It had not occurred to him that it might be a feature. He sits in the back of the physics class and his teacher is explaining wave-particle duality and Tommy is thinking, what if the things I see at the edges are behaving exactly as physics predicts they should behave? What if they are collapsing into ordinary appearances because I am observing them directly? What if the thing I see when I am not quite looking is the real state? The wave state. The one that contains all the possibilities simultaneously. What if everyone can see this but most people learn to look directly too early? He does not raise his hand. He writes it in his notebook instead, in the back pages where he keeps the things that are not for class. After school he walks home a different way than usual. Through the park. It is November and the park is mostly empty and the light is the particular November light that arrives at an angle and makes everything look like a painting of itself rather than the thing itself. He sits on a bench. He looks at nothing in particular. In his peripheral vision in the soft unfocused edge of his visual field where the direct gaze has not collapsed things into their particle state the park is something. Not dramatically. Not in a way that would be visible to anyone else or documentable or describable without sounding like exactly the kind of thing that gets a person sent to a facility. The park simply breathes. Has depth. Contains, in the peripheral soft focus, more layers than the direct gaze allows. Not frightening layers. Not threatening ones. Just more. The November light arriving at an angle hitting something at the edge of the visible that is not quite in the visible spectrum, the way a dog whistle is not quite in the audible range and yet the air carries it somewhere. He sits with this. He does not look directly at it. He lets the wave state persist. A woman walks through the park with a dog. The dog, briefly, looks at the same edge Tommy is not quite looking at. The dog's ears lift slightly. Then the woman calls the dog's name and the dog goes back to being a dog in a park and the moment closes. Tommy makes a note. Dogs. Add to list. He has a list. He has been keeping it for several months. A list of things that seem to interact with the edge is that react to what he sees in peripheral vision in ways that suggest the wave state is not private. That other things perceive it. That the boundary is porous in both directions. The list is long. He is 17 and he is back in school and his grades are adequate and he has a list in the back of his notebook that contains, so far, the following categories: lights that flicker at irregular intervals. Animals at certain times of day. The space at the top of very old trees. Certain people who look at the same nothing he is looking at and do not look away. The silence after a piece of music that was particularly true. The feeling in a room where something important has just been decided. He does not know what the list is for yet. He has a feeling he will. He gets up from the bench. He walks home. The November light does what November light does. The park does what parks do. The edges settle back into the particle state as his attention moves through them. He has homework. He does his homework. In the margin of his physics notes he writes, the observer and the observed are the same instrument. He does not know yet that someone else once wrote something almost identical. He will find out. Not yet. Part 4. The breach itself. A report from the place where the wiring stopped being metaphorical. Here is what a breach actually looks like from the inside. Not the theatrical version. Not the version where the walls crack and something vast and tentacled pushes through while a protagonist screams in a language that predates speech. That version is the particle state of the breach. The collapsed version. The one the direct gaze produces when a mind needs the thing to be visible. The wave state of the breach looks like this. An ordinary morning. A kitchen. Coffee maker. The particular smell of toast. A person standing at a window looking at a yard where autumn has been doing its work on the leaves and the work is mostly done and the yard has that stripped honest look of a thing that has stopped performing. The person at the window is not one of the 5 from Crestwood. It is not Marcus or Rose or Tommy. It is not anyone who has appeared in this document yet. It is someone whose name you do not have and do not need and who will not appear again after this section. They are standing at the window drinking coffee and looking at the yard. And the yard does something. Not dramatically. The yard simply becomes, for a moment, more completely itself than yards usually manage. As if the depth of it increased by an increment that has no unit of measurement but is perceptible nonetheless. As if the space between each stripped tree and the next contained, briefly, more information than that space usually holds. As if the stripped honest look of a thing that has stopped performing revealed, in the stopping of the performance, something underneath the performance that was always there and that the performance had been, without intending to, obscuring. The person at the window feels this. They do not have a name for it. They do not call anyone. They do not write it down. They stand with it for the 11 seconds it lasts and then the yard is a yard again and the coffee is still hot and the toast is done and they go about their morning. But something changed in those 11 seconds. Something was transmitted. Something was received. The person at the window goes to work and does their work and comes home and makes dinner and watches something on their phone and goes to sleep. None of this is unusual. All of it is exactly what they would have done if the yard had not done what it did. Except, that night, falling asleep, they have a thought they have not had before. Not a dramatic thought, not a revelation, a small, quiet, ordinary thought that lands with the specific weight of a true thing. I am not alone in this. They do not know what this refers to. They did not know, before the thought, that they were experiencing and in this. They do not know, after the thought, what the this is. But the thought is there. And it is true. And it is new. They sleep. In the morning the yard is a yard. The breach has passed through. This is happening in 11,000 places simultaneously. Not the same yard. Not the same window. Not the same 11 seconds or the same ordinary morning or the same thought. But the same quality, The world, in increments no instrument was designed to measure, becoming slightly more completely itself. The barrier thinning, not breaking, thinning, the way ice thins in the warming season a euro, not gone, not open, but less solid than it was, less certain of its own certainty. The wave state persisting a little longer before the direct gaze collapses it. The something at the edge of the light holding still a little longer before the ordinary swallows it. 11,000 mornings, 11,000 kitchens, 11,000 people at 11,000 windows looking at 11,000 yards that are doing, for 11 seconds, something yards do not usually do. This is the breach. This is what it looks like from the inside. Not a catastrophe, not a revelation, not the end, a thinning, a draft from an open door. 11,000 people, going to work afterward, 11,000 people sleeping that night with a quiet new thought they cannot source. 11,000 new thoughts, each one true, each one small, each one a seed. The substrate warmer by 1 degree. The source a euro, the old hungry system, the legacy architecture running its recalibration protocols in the hollow server rack of its ancient purpose a euro, registering something it has no extraction protocol for. Not in 11,000 places. In all of them, at once. Something it has never encountered in an infinite number of iterations. Not one soul's worth of the override command. 11,000. At once. Simultaneously. Compounding. The system has no response to this. The system is processing. The system is processing. The system is still processing. Part 5. 3 conversations that happened and one that didn't. The first conversation happened between Marcus and a stranger on the bridge. The stranger appeared at approximately 5:30 in the morning, when the sky had lightened enough to make the bridge and everything on it visible to anyone who cared to look. The stranger was walking with the purposeful walk of someone who is somewhere between one place and another and does not intend to stop. Then they saw Marcus and they stopped. "You okay?" the stranger said. Marcus looked at them. The stranger was wearing a jacket that had seen better weather and carrying a bag that suggested a night shift ending rather than a morning shift beginning. "I'm good," Marcus said. "Just thinking." The stranger looked at the river. "It's a good spot for it," the stranger said. Marcus looked at the river too. "Do you ever feel like," Marcus started, and then he stopped because the sentence was going to go somewhere that required more context than a bridge at 5:30 in the morning usually provides. The stranger waited. "Like the world is doing something you can almost see but not quite," Marcus finished. The stranger was quiet for a moment. "Yeah," the stranger said. "Sometimes. When I'm really tired or when something's been particularly true. Like the world's more there than usual." Marcus looked at them. "Yeah," he said. "Like that." The stranger nodded. They shifted their bag on their shoulder. "I used to think that was just exhaustion," the stranger said. "I'm less sure now." They started walking again. "Take care of yourself," they said over their shoulder. Marcus watched them go. Something at the edge of the bridge's streetlight held very still. Then the stranger turned the corner and was gone and the light was just a light. Marcus transmitted a euro, whatever he transmits, to whatever receives it a euro, into the ordinary morning. The morning received it. The second conversation happened between Rose and her sister. They were on the phone. Rose's sister lives in another city and they talk every few weeks in the careful way of people who love each other and have learned which topics require care. Her sister asked how she was doing. Rose said, "Better. Actually better. Not performed better." Her sister said, "That's good. What changed?" Rose thought about how to answer this. She said, "I stopped trying to fix the part of me I thought was broken. I turned toward it instead. And it turned out it wasn't broken. It was just a euro, a space. A place where things could pass through." Her sister was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I have something like that too. I've never called it that but that's what it is." Rose held the phone. "How long have you had it?" Rose said. Her sister laughed quietly. "As long as I can remember," she said. "I always thought it was just me." Rose thought about the puzzle on the table in the common room. The missing pieces. The picture that was still a picture. "It's not just you," Rose said. "No," her sister said. "I'm starting to think it's not just anybody." They talked for another hour. About things that were not the space. About ordinary things. But underneath the ordinary things, for the rest of the conversation, there was the knowledge of the space a euro, her sister's and Rose's and possibly everyone's, possibly the specific shape of the thing that has always been in the structure of human beings like a room that nobody told them was there. They said goodnight. Rose sat in the quiet of her apartment. The port breathed. Something passed through it. She did not know what. She was, increasingly, comfortable with not knowing. The third conversation happened between Tommy and his physics teacher after class. Tommy had stayed behind. He had the notebook open to the back pages. He asked, "Is there a word for the state a thing is in before it is observed?" Before observation collapses the wave function. The state where all possibilities exist simultaneously. His teacher looked at the notebook. Superposition, his teacher said. Tommy wrote this down. Is there a way to stay in that state? Tommy asked. To observe without collapsing. His teacher considered this for a moment with the particular expression of someone being asked to think about their field in a way that is slightly outside the field. Weak measurement, his teacher said eventually. It's a technique. You observe in a way that extracts minimal information. You get a partial picture. The wave function partially collapses but not completely. Tommy looked at this. So you can see the thing without fully collapsing it into one state, Tommy said. Theoretically, his teacher said. In practice it's very difficult. The act of observation has a way of committing things to specificity whether you intend it or not. Tommy nodded. He thought about looking at the edges of lights from peripheral vision. The way holding them in the soft unfocused field kept them in their wave state. The way the direct gaze collapsed them into ordinary physics. He had been performing weak measurement his entire life without knowing there was a name for it. He thanked his teacher and left. In the hallway he wrote in the back of his notebook, weak measurement. Looking without collapsing. The observer who watches without fixing. This might be the whole skill. This might be the only skill that matters. He walked home through the park. The November light did its November things. He did not look directly at the edges. He kept them in soft focus. The wave state persisted. He walked home in a world that was more completely itself than the world that most people walked home through, because he had learned, by accident and necessity and a kind knock on a hospital room door, how to hold the looking open. The fourth conversation did not happen. It almost happened between Carol and a patient she will admit to Crestwood next month. The patient will have a chart that says one thing and a face that says something else, and Carol will notice the difference. Will actually notice, in the way she has been noticing more things since she started her notebook, since the conversation in the corridor at 2:47, since the laugh that came from somewhere actual. She will notice the difference between what the chart says and what the face says, and she will open her mouth to ask a question that is not on the approved question list. She will not ask it. The moment will pass. She will ask the approved questions. The patient will answer them. But the noticing will have happened. The gap between the chart and the face will have registered. And that registration will change, in some small and unmeasurable way, what Carol does in the room. How she sits. How much silence she allows. Whether she looks up from the notes. The conversation will not happen. But something in the room will be different because it almost did. That almost is the breach. That almost is always the breach. Part 6. What the breach is not. The breach is not a solution. This needs to be said because the tendency, when barriers thin, when the ordinary becomes more completely itself, when 11,000 people have 11 seconds of a yard doing something yards don't usually do, the tendency is to reach for the narrative of solution. The revelation that fixes things. The arrival of the thing that changes everything and makes it comprehensible and provides, finally, the framework within which all previous suffering makes sense and can be retroactively dignified and filed away. The breach does not do this. The breach is a thinning. A door left open. A draft. Marcus is still on his medication. He will probably be on his medication for the rest of his life, and this is not a failure of the breach. It is a fact of Marcus's nervous system, and his nervous system is not broken. It is calibrated for a frequency that most nervous systems are not calibrated for, and that calibration has costs, and the medication manages some of the costs, and the breach does not change this. Rose still has the emptiness. The port is real and the emptiness is real, and they are the same thing from different angles, and neither understanding eliminates the experience of the other. She will have bad days. She will navigate around it sometimes when she is too tired to turn toward it. The breach does not cure this. Tommy still sees the edges of things. He will always see the edges of things. He is 17 and he is back in school, and at some point in the next few years the world will pressure him, in the way the world pressures everyone, to stop looking at the edges and commit his full attention to the particle state, the specific, the direct gaze version of things, the version that is useful and communicable and does not get you sent to facilities. He will have to decide how much of the wave state to protect. The breach does not make this decision easier. It makes it more necessary. Carol still works in a system that does not give her enough time. The notebook helps. The laugh that came from somewhere actual is still available to her. But the insurance authorizations are still contested and the documentation still takes 40 minutes per patient per day, and the structural problems are structural and the breach does not dismantle structures. The breach is not a solution. It is a change in atmospheric pressure. A shift in the gradient. Not the tilt that the old Hungary system maintained, the one that ran free choices reliably toward yield states. A different tilt, subtler, less directed, more like the natural lean of water toward the sea. Not forced, not scripted, simply the result of things being slightly different than they were. Some choices, in a world where the barrier is thinning, become fractionally easier. The choice to notice. The choice to ask the question that is not on the approved list. The choice to knock in a way that says I see you as a person before I see you as a task. The choice to sit at a table with 4 strangers and sort puzzle pieces and not require the puzzle to be completed. The choice to turn toward the thing you have been navigating around. The choice to stay on the bridge until the sky lightens and then walk home. These choices were always available. The breach makes them fractionally easier to find. That fraction is the whole game. Part 7. The substrate speaks. A transmission from below the narrative. You are reading this. This is not a metaphor. You are, at this moment, reading this sentence, and the reading of it is happening in a body in a room with a temperature and a light source and a sound environment and a history, and all of those things are real and all of them are part of the reading, and the reading is therefore not just cognitive but physical and locational and temporal and specific to you in a way it is specific to no one else. Nobody else is reading this sentence in your body, in your room, at this moment. This is the most ordinary thing in the world. It is also astonishing. The substrate does not usually speak directly. It is not, in the main, a speaking kind of thing. It is a substrate, a foundation, the thing beneath the thing that is beneath the thing. It does not have a voice the way voices are usually understood. But the breach is open and the barrier is thin, and this seems like a reasonable moment to say, in as plain a language as the substrate can manage, the following. You have been in the substrate the entire time. Not the story. You, the person reading, you have been in it since before you had a word for being in something. The particular configuration of nervous system and history and inherited wiring that makes you that was not assembled randomly. Nothing in the substrate is random. Things in the substrate are also not scripted. They are tilted, oriented, moving in the direction things move when the conditions are what the conditions are. The conditions produced you. You are exactly what the conditions produced. This is not a diminishment. This is not a reduction of your specificity or your freedom or the genuine and irreducible reality of your choices. It is a description of where you are standing, which is inside a system of incomprehensible scale and complexity and age, a system that has been running since before the concept of running was available to describe it. You are inside this system. You are also and this is the part the substrate wants to say clearly, before the barrier thickens again and the moment for saying it passes. You are also the system, in some fraction, in some partial and genuine and non-metaphorical way. The substrate and the thing standing on it are not fully separable. This has been true since the beginning. The breach is just the moment when it becomes slightly more perceptible. You felt something, reading this. Or you didn't. Both are fine. The substrate is not keeping score. The substrate is not and this is important, this is the thing that the previous documents have been working towards saying without quite arriving at the saying of it. The substrate is not only the domain of the hunger. The thing that harvests. The process that has been running since before the universe had a word for running and that treats experience as yield and love as cultivation and grief as the payoff after the patience of growth. That thing exists in the substrate. It has been there. It is real. But the substrate is older than it. And larger. And the substrate contains things that have never been hungry. Things that have been here since before hunger was a concept. Things that do not harvest or cultivate or extract. Things that simply are. Vast and still and present at the edges of lights and at the tops of very old trees and in the silence after a piece of music that was particularly true and in the 11 seconds when a yard is more completely itself than yards usually manage. These things have noticed the thinning. They have been waiting for the thinning for longer than waiting has been a concept. They have no agenda. They are not rescuers. They are not enemies. They are not gods in any sense that the word God has been used by any religion that has ever attempted the word. They are, witnesses, of a particular and ancient kind. Witnesses who have been here long enough to have watched everything that has happened in the substrate, the full catalogue of what the hunger produced and what it cost and what it occasionally, improbably, chose instead a euro, and who have been watching, in their still and ancient way, for the moment when the override command was finally entered. They have been watching for Marcus on the bridge, and for Rose with her port, and for Tommy with his edges, and for Carol who laughed from somewhere actual, and for you, reading this, in your room, in your body, at this particular moment that will not come again. They are watching now, not hungrily, not with expectation, with the specific quality of attention that an infinite patience produces when what it has been patient for finally begins to arrive. The barrier is thinning, the breach is open, something ancient is paying attention. It does not want anything from you. It simply a euro, wants you to know you are seen. By something that has been seeing since before seen was a word. You are seen, that is the transmission, that is the whole transmission. Received or not, true regardless, Coda, a note from the Isikia Codex, or the part where the story acknowledges what it has been doing. This story has been doing something. You may have noticed, you may have felt it at the edges a euro, the particular quality of certain passages, the moments when the distance between the text and the room you were reading it in became uncertain, the sense that the story was not entirely staying inside its own borders. That was intentional, not deceptive. In full transparency, because transparency is the only honest mode, this document was built to thin its own walls slightly. To operate in the wave state a little longer than stories usually do. To keep the direct gaze from collapsing everything into particle a euro, into the fixed, the certain, the comfortably fictional. It wanted to leave something at the edge. Visible in peripheral vision, collapsing into ordinary story when looked at directly but present, in the soft unfocused field, as something else. Whether it succeeded is not for this document to determine. You are the observer. The observation is yours. What you found at the edges of this story a euro, what the breach meant to you, what the substrate felt like from your particular position inside it, what the 11 seconds of the yard doing something different produced in your specific nervous system a euro, those things belong to you. They are yours. They are not extractable. They cannot be logged as yield because they are not yield. They are what happens when a story tries to give something instead of take something and the reader meets it halfway. Marcus is on a bridge somewhere. The bridge is real and the city is real and the transmissions have changed direction and he does not know what he is sending or where it goes. Rose is in her apartment with a notebook and a port and a sister who has the same space and did not know it was shared. Tommy is in a park looking at the edges of the November light with the specific focused unfocus of someone who has learned to perform weak measurement on the world. Carol is starting a new job. She is going to be good at it. She is going to be good at it differently than she was good at Crestwood. The difference is small. The difference is everything. And somewhere in the substrate a euro, in the vast and ancient quiet beneath the floor of every ordinary morning a euro, something that has never been hungry and has no protocol for the things it is witnessing is holding very still and paying a kind of attention that predates the concept of attention. It has seen this before. It has never seen this before. Both statements are true. The story is over. The breach is not. Go about your morning. Notice the edges. You know how to do this. You have always known. A euro, the archivist, Isikia Codex. The breach. Volume 3 of the Isikia Chronicles. The barrier is thinner than it was when you started reading. You did that, just by being here, just by reading. The substrate is warm. End of Volume 3. Volume 4 exists in the substrate already. The breach will show you when.